It was a Saturday in late July, one of those cloudless Midwest afternoons where the sky stretches too wide and too blue, like it's trying to swallow your thoughts. Her parents had a big backyard with a red-stained deck and one of those above-ground pools sunk halfway into the earth. The kind of backyard made for barbecues, water balloon fights, and family secrets whispered over lawn chairs and beer coolers. She called it just a little get-together, but the guest list had grown arms and legs. I counted at least 40 people, uncles, cousins, co-workers, even her college roommate who once drunkenly confessed she didn't believe in monogamy. I only knew about half of them, and even fewer seemed to know me. That should have been the first sign. You'd think after 3 years together, more of them would have recognized my face. We arrived separately. She came straight from her Pilates class, in a cropped tee and those high-waisted jeans she knew drove me wild. I came after finishing a client call at home, wearing khaki shorts, a faded Cubs cap, and a nervous smile I couldn't quite shake. She kissed my cheek, barely, and disappeared into the swarm. Her mom waved from the grill. Her dad offered me a cold beer, then wandered off before I could say thank you. I stood there, beer sweating in my hand, wondering why my stomach felt like it was holding its breath. You know that feeling? Like you're walking into a scene you weren't given the script for? Hey man, Kyle, right? I turned. One of her cousins, tall guy, too much cologne, already on his second or third drink. I remembered him vaguely from a Thanksgiving dinner where he ranted about crypto and called turkey a beta meat. Yeah, Kyle, I said, offering a polite smile. He chuckled and clapped me on the shoulder. Didn't expect to see you here. Bro thought you were more of a stay-at-home kind of dude. I raised an eyebrow. I like barbecue. Sure. I just figured, you know. He paused, glanced over his shoulder, then leaned in with a conspiratorial grin. I mean, side guys don't usually get the family invite, right? The words didn't land all at once. They hovered for a second, like smoke in the heat. Then my brain caught up. Side guy? He said it casually, like it was a joke, like I'd laugh along. I didn't. He looked confused when I didn't react. Wait, you do know you're not, I mean, she didn't. His voice trailed off as he took a step back, the realization starting to crack through his buzz. I stared at him. What did you just say? He shook his head quickly. Nah, man, forget it. I was just messing around. Too much beer, you know? But I didn't know, and I wasn't forgetting anything. I walked away. Not fast, just steady. Like if I stopped to think, I'd lose my balance. I found her near the cooler, laughing with 2 of her friends from work. Women I'd never properly been introduced to, despite months of dating. She saw me, and her face shifted into something unreadable. Not guilt, not warmth, just calculation. Hey babe, I said voice low. Can we talk? She hesitated, then followed me behind the garage, where the music was faint and no one could hear. What's up? She asked, arms folded. I looked at her, really looked, for the first time that day. Her necklace, one I didn't recognize. The way she turned her body slightly away from me. The careful distance in her eyes. I told her what her cousin said. She blinked, then laughed, too fast, too high-pitched. Oh my God, Kyle, he was joking. That's just Brian. He says dumb stuff when he's drunk. I didn't smile. Her laughter faded. Seriously, you're being paranoid. Paranoid. The old favorite. I just want to know, I said. Am I someone you're proud to bring home? Or am I just convenient? She flinched. Subtle, but there. You're overthinking everything. No, I said quietly. I don't think I'm thinking enough. There was a pause between us. Not awkward. Not hostile. Just quiet. Like 2 people waiting for a train that might never come. She stepped forward, touched my arm. Kyle, you're important to me. You know that. But I didn't. Not anymore. Because here's the thing. I've been to her family gatherings before. Birthdays. Weddings. Dinners. But always on the edge. Never in photos. Never tagged in her posts. Never the one she'd sit beside when the stories got personal. And now, her cousin, a little too tipsy to keep the lie straight, had said what no one else dared to. I was the side guy, and maybe he meant it metaphorically. Maybe not. But either way, the truth stung the same. I wasn't the main character in her story. I was a subplot, a placeholder, an asterisk. And the worst part? I think I'd known it for months. Maybe even since the beginning. After the barbecue, things didn't explode. They just flattened. That's how it really ends sometimes. Not with a confrontation or a door slamming, but with a shift so quiet it barely makes a sound. Like when a tire starts leaking air. You don't notice right away. You just wake up one morning, and the ride feels heavier. That night, we drove home in silence. The kind that's not peaceful, just full of everything you don't want to say out loud. I had both windows down, letting the warm wind slap against my thoughts. She was texting someone with the screen tilted slightly away from me. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. The next morning, I woke up before her. Sat on the edge of the bed staring at the carpet for a long time, wondering when I stopped feeling like I belonged in my own life. We didn't talk about it. Not the cousin. Not what he said. She acted like it never happened, and I let her. I think part of me hoped it was just some terrible misunderstanding. A joke taken out of context. A blur of beer and bad judgment. But the thing about moments like that, they're like cracks in glass. Even if they're small, you can't unsee them. Every glance after that, every phone call she stepped outside to take, every name I didn't recognize in her notifications, they all started sounding like echoes of a truth I didn't want to accept. And here's where it gets hard to explain, because she didn't treat me badly. Not really. She was still affectionate. Still laughed at my jokes. Still brought me coffee on Sundays and kissed my shoulder in the mornings. But it all felt curated. Like I was a character in a role she kept rehearsing. When her friends came over, I stayed in the kitchen. When we went out, I drove, but she picked the place. When we met people she knew, she introduced me by name, but never said my boyfriend. Just Kyle. No title. No place. Like I was a permanent guest in her orbit. There was one night, maybe 2 weeks after the barbecue, when it all started to tip. We were invited to a rooftop dinner party, the kind with string lights and tiny appetizers that make you wish you'd eaten beforehand. I showed up in a blazer. She wore a dress I hadn't seen before, low back, subtle gold shimmer. She didn't ask what I thought. She didn't wait for me at the door. The host, a guy named Sean, greeted her like an old flame who still kept a room for her in his heart. He hugged her a little too long, asked her how she was doing with a tone that carried history. When he turned to me, he hesitated. "Oh, and you must be?" I extended my hand. "Kyle." Sean smiled. "Cool, cool. You're friends?" She laughed. Something like that. And that was it. No correction. No, he's my boyfriend. Just something like that. It landed in my chest like a stone. I spent most of the night watching her from across the rooftop, nursing a watered-down old-fashioned and wondering how I became a footnote in my own relationship. On the way home, I asked her, "What did you mean by that?" "Something like that?" She was scrolling through her phone. "I don't know. I was just being casual." "But we're not casual." She glanced at me, irritated. "Why are you being so sensitive lately?" There it was. The deflection. The classic pivot. I'd seen it before, just never from her. At least, not like this. I didn't respond. I just looked out the window and let the silence pile up again. A few days later, I ran into one of her old friends at a bookstore downtown. Maria. We'd only met twice, but she remembered me. Kind eyes, warm smile. She asked how we were doing. I said, "I think we're okay." Maria's face didn't move for a second. Then she nodded slowly. "Yeah, okay." She didn't say anything else, but something about the way she said okay felt like a warning dressed as a compliment. And I started thinking about all the other little clues I'd overlooked. The photos on her Instagram. Plenty of group shots, plenty of solo selfies, but never one of me. The time we ran into her coworker at a cafe, and she introduced me as just a friend. The wedding invite she RSVP'd to without asking if I could come. And how, no matter how many nights I stayed over, I never had a drawer. Not one. You ever feel like someone's life has a stage, and you're only allowed to sit in the back row? That's where I was. The back seat. The side character. The one with no monologue, no arc, no audience. She once told me, "You're the most stable person I've ever dated." I used to take that as a compliment. But now, it felt more like a job title. The stability. The placeholder. The guy who was always there, just in case nothing better came along. I didn't leave that night. Not even the next day. That's the part I'm not proud of. Because even when the truth feels like a hammer to the chest, it's amazing how much denial a heart can hold. You tell yourself it's just a phase. That love goes through quiet seasons. That maybe if you try a little harder, say the right thing, she'll see you again. But the truth? She stopped seeing me long before I stopped trying to be seen. A week after the rooftop party, I found the photo. It wasn't hidden. That's what struck me most. It was posted on her story, 24 hours, then gone. But a friend of mine, someone who'd never really liked her, sent me a screenshot. Her, in a booth at some lounge I'd never been to, leaning in close beside a guy I didn't recognize, his hand on her leg. Caption said, "Home is a feeling." No tags, no names, just that. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. I didn't ask her about it. Didn't show her. I just sat with it. Let it crack open everything inside me that I'd been holding together with reasons and hope and memory. And then, I started packing. Not in some dramatic, suitcase slamming, door banging way. Quietly, a few shirts at a time. The charger I kept on her nightstand. My shoes by the back door. Bit by bit, I reclaimed pieces of myself she no longer noticed. One morning, I left a note. Not angry, not bitter, just honest. It said, "I don't know who that guy was in the photo, but I know what it feels like to be the one who isn't missed when he's gone. I've been trying to make a home in a story I was never written into, and I think I've earned the right to find a page where I matter. Kyle." I left my key beneath her favorite mug in the cabinet. The one that said "not before coffee," even though she never really drank coffee. It took her 2 days to reach out. The first message was just, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Then came, "You're being dramatic." And finally, "Wow. So I guess I was right about you all along." That one stung. Not because she said it, but because I'd once believed she never would. She blocked me an hour later. I stood by my apartment window that night, watching the city blink and breathe below me. It was quiet. My phone didn't buzz. Nobody needed me. Nobody expected anything from me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone to choose me. I already had. You learn something strange after heartbreak. You learn that love isn't just about how someone makes you feel when you're with them. It's about how they make you feel when you're alone. And I'd never felt more invisible than when I was standing next to her. I don't hate her. I don't even think she's cruel. I think she just lived her life like a highlight reel, and I was good for the scenes that didn't make it into the final cut. That barbecue, that slip of the tongue from her cousin, that was never really the betrayal. It was the mirror. It showed me what I'd been pretending not to see, that I was always on the outside of her world, looking in. A side guy, not because she cheated, though maybe she did, but because she never made room for me to be anything more. Not in her stories, not in her photos, not in her future. So I wrote my own. And in this one, I'm the main character. And I don't need her to read it.